Hello, I'm Bruce Lorincz, and I do a weekly show called Bruce on the Loose. We talk to people in city government and the school system, and also people that have organizations that help people out, and also businesses. Matt Springer's with us, and he's the Director of Economic Development for the City of Wadsworth. Matt, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks for the invite.
What about your educational background? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so I attended Grace College, which is a small Christian school in Indiana. Actually received a basketball scholarship to play there, and so that's where I received my undergraduate degree. Upon graduating, I then attended the University of Akron and received a master's in public administration and urban planning, and that's my educational background, and since that time I've been in the workforce.
So certainly you were then with Akron, and I'm a former ZIP as well, so very good for you. And you kind of got a flavor for the Northeast Ohio area in that situation.
Yeah.
And why did you apply then? Why was Wadsworth an interesting, so did you have other positions maybe before we got to Wadsworth? Let's go with that.
Yeah, so again, I grew up in the state of Indiana, moved around a lot as a kid. When I met my wife at Grace College, because I didn't have strong roots within any particular community, she, however, did. She grew up and was raised in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Never heard of the place, but upon graduating, we were married and then moved out to Northeast Ohio. And so I've been here for now 16 years in Northeast Ohio and consider this home. So upon graduating from the University of Akron, I was fortunate and received a position with Copley. And that's really where I started most of my work that is relevant to what I do today, which is dealing with land use and economic development and things of that nature. So worked for Copley for about almost 13 years. Then took a position for Mayor David Klein in the city of Talmadge, handling their economic development. Was there kind of during the pandemic period, and then was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to interview, and obviously was offered the position here in the city of Wadsworth, and couldn't be more excited about the opportunity.
Did you have a mentor in any of those other positions, Copley, Talmadge, to kind of point you in the right direction, and someone that really was competent in those positions you ran into?
Certainly did. I think that is really important. That was something I sought out. There was an individual by the name of Jim Stifler from the city of Hudson who handled their economic development. And so I always looked to Jim to see how he did things and how he would approach projects and companies and things of that nature. So learned a lot from Jim. Another individual that played a significant role on my professional development was an individual by the name of Dwayne Grohl. Dwayne is local. He's a president of Environmental Design Group in Akron. And spent a lot of time with Dwayne over several years, just learning from him, and I really valued that time and his just position on so many issues.
Why is Wadsworth a unique community?
It's incredibly unique, and I know a lot of people say that, so it may sound a little bit cheesy, but from my perspective, when I was looking at this position, there were quite a few things that jumped out at me, and I think maybe at times people take this kind of stuff for granted. Wadsworth has a significantly lower income tax rate compared to most communities, and I think that's something to be noted. The income tax for other communities in Summit County oftentimes is almost double what it is here in Wadsworth. So Wadsworth income tax at 1.4% is relatively low. So if you're looking for a place that's business friendly and makes sense financially, there's a strong case here. I took a look at all of the infrastructure that exists. Access to interstate, obviously if you're in my world and you're dealing with economic development, a lot of manufacturing businesses, they want to know what's their proximity to interstate. How quickly can they get goods on the highway and spread it across the board? So certainly access to interstate was a big component of that. The fact that the city owns and controls so many of utilities, whether that's electric, water, sewer. I think something that's incredibly unique is the fact that we have broadband to the business, CityLink. That's a major component. and it's very futuristic. And so in many ways, Wadsworth was ahead of their time in being able to provide that fiber optic utility to the business community.
We did a show with Robert Patrick, and we have a presence with solar.
Yeah.
If the sun shines, which it's starting to now, in that show we said about 7% of the city's electrical needs comes from solar, which is unique too.
It sure is, and I saw that episode, Bruce. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I found it very interesting.
What about collaboration? We were talking before the show, and 10, 15 years ago, cities kind of did things on their own, but that's not possible now. You have to collaborate with not only city employees, but townships, cities, and the state. Could you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the new buzzword anymore is regionalism, and it's so appropriate because you're right. You shouldn't operate within a closed vacuum. There's better ideas out there, so you should always be learning, listening, and trying to collaborate. In my day-to-day, I work with a lot of different individuals from different departments, different agencies. So that's something I truly do value, whether that's somebody at the state agency, Team NEO, that helps a lot with site selection and land development, or something is more current. We were fortunate to work with the Ohio EPA and their targeted brownfield assessment program, and we were able to receive grant dollars from the Ohio EPA to help with due diligence associated with the Brickyard, which may be something you've heard about recently.
No, go ahead, please, elaborate.
The Brickyard is a over 200-acre industrial site in which the city was successful in entering into a purchase agreement to acquire. It's part of what will be our Parks Master Plan, and assuming that it moves forward and we're able to purchase and close, ultimately there will be a state-of-the-art athletic complex, and so we're really excited about that. But kind of going back, as part of our due diligence, we were able to receive grant funds from the Ohio EPA in order to do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. And so just to make sure we're not purchasing a site that's environmentally contaminated and would put us in a bad position.
Businesses are really attuned to that. How can they, not only transportation you indicated, but the utilities, certainly the school system enters into that, and it all kind of fits together that this is pretty desirable place to maybe set roots in, but again, it seems like it's a shrinking the land availability. You know, I walk all over the city, and it seems like parcels are being built on by housing and extra people coming in, and there's fewer and fewer lots, I would think, and properties.
Yeah. So that is something we do recognize as a challenge of the future. One of the reasons why we've not had to raise our income tax rate, and it's my understanding that has not been increased since the early 1980s, is because we have had growth. And I think it's important to recognize that growth is a good thing. The alternative to growth is decline, and that's certainly something we don't want within our community. So there has been positive growth. It's led to more job opportunities, more income tax, which ultimately pays to help fire, police, and roads and things of that nature. So it's been very, very strong and successful.
Yeah, we had Mayor Laub on probably about 8 months ago, maybe even 9 months, and she indicated with the census, we just have gradual growth. It's not like it's 5-6%. It's around 2%, but it's manageable. I think that's important as well, that you kind of know some of the projects going on, and you don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Yeah, and there are a couple residential projects that are right at the early stages. Pulte Homes, for example.
Where is that located?
So Pulte Homes is really, it's in the just to the east of where the Brickyard is located, right on Main Avenue, Main Street. You have to forgive me, Bruce. I've only been here for a year. In fact, it'll be 1 year next week.
That's okay. You get every day. You get more acclimated to the community. That's true.
So Pulte Homes is putting in a nice residential subdivision on Main Street, very close to the village of St. Edwards. So we're excited for that. There's a little over 100 acres along Reimer Road that just came into the city through an annexation. So there's some early discussions about that being developed for a residential neighborhood as well. So we are continuing to see steady growth but it's manageable growth. That's something that I do track pretty closely, particularly on the industrial and commercial side. Currently, we have a little over 250 acres of industrial land that's on the market and available. I should point out, of that 250 acres, almost 205 of it consists of the brickyard. So suddenly, with that land being taken off, there's not a whole lot of available industrial land remaining. So it's something we're taking a close look at. We're paying attention to it, and we're hoping to open up some opportunities in the future.
I would imagine your position calls for patience sometimes, that there are some sticking points along the way. Maybe the businesses want something that you have difficulty, the land or a location that is not available, and then suddenly it falls into place. And do you sometimes get surprised that things get pushed forward and are positive, and other things that you think there's going to be no sweat? And there's concerns.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned, is you have to be patient. Anytime you're dealing with real estate matters and complex business situations that oftentimes are out of our control. We can't influence the interest rates or currently just logistics and supply chain issues. Those are things we have to be patient with. So that's something I've learned within this position. You really need to be patient. You want to make yourself available and do everything you can to be at the table and ready and willing to help different individuals if they are looking to make an investment within the community. But sometimes it's out of your control. But we're ready and available should that time come.
Yeah, COVID kind of put not only cities but homes and schools and everyone on alert that getting the workers, getting the supplies to do the work, and then now interest rates have been really stubborn, and the Fed has tried all sorts of things to get it down, and with, I'd say, limited success at best. Has that really slowed the growth a little bit in the city, do you think?
It has to an extent. In our conversations with a lot of our larger companies, they actually welcome the little bit of a slowdown. For so long, things were so strong for them economically that they couldn't keep pace. Certainly workforce retention and attraction remains a concern. Interest rates is a concern. Supply chain, if you're one of those companies that are expanding, it's interesting some of the issues they have in being able to find pretty basic parts to complete their project. That's become an issue. So that the supply chain's still difficult to work with.
Now, we touched on a little bit about business coming in, but we have a lot of businesses here, and they may be thinking about expanding.
Yeah.
What about how do you talk and plan with people to say, hey, this would be good rather than moving to Tennessee. We'd like you to stay here, and maybe you can expand. How are some of those conversations go?
Yeah. So in my position, at least I believe that it's really about building a relationship, a genuine, authentic relationship with the business community. So I really try in the almost 1 year that I've been here to reach out to as many companies, whether that's a big company or a small company, and try to build and nurture that relationship. And those that were successful in being able to communicate with them, we learn about what their challenges are, what other opportunities they may have, and then where we could step in and hopefully solve some problems and help support them to stay here in the community. And we've got some really good success stories that are currently underway as we speak of companies that are expanding here within the community.
What about incentives? We talked about the transportation, the school system, a workforce that is willing and able to work. Other incentives the city could, or the county or the state could provide for businesses that may be on the edge?
Yeah, so usually the more common incentives that most people are familiar with is a community reinvestment area. That's more commonly known as a property tax abatement. That's a common incentive that's used, and we do offer that within the city of Wadsworth. The other program that we commonly use are job creation grants. Those are for new positions that are created, and it's an income tax rebate back to the company. So those are the two most commonly used programs. But we're pushing the envelope. We're thinking outside the box, and we've recently rolled out a couple additional incentive programs that we're really excited about. And so one of them is the Restaurant Expansion and Attraction Program. We commonly refer to it as REAP. We did one round last year to help try to attract or grow the restaurant industry within the city of Wadsworth, and so we were very successful. That's one program. Another program we're getting ready to launch here later this month is our facade improvement grant for the match district, and so we call that one the FIG. We have to come up with some kind of acronym, but that's going to be a facade improvement program to help businesses on the south end of town, whether that's windows, doors, new paint,
sidewalks, maybe?
Yeah. Well, sidewalks are another part of that. We're going to have over 17,000 square feet of sidewalk panels replaced through a CDBG grant that we had received. So a lot of the sidewalks along Main Street going down through the Match District, those will be replaced over the next year.
Yeah, I see a lot of automobiles parked on right across from the original Match company, and there seems like there's little businesses there, a dog grooming and obedience school, and just so many little shops that are getting a start and probably going to be successful in our town.
Yeah, and we're actually seeing that occur as we speak. There's a unique company inside of the old injector facility right on Main Street where lots of little different companies are located in there, one of them being Willow and West. And so Willow and West, they occupy roughly 20,000 square feet within the injector facility, but they've recently announced that they're going to be expanding, and they're going to open up a retail storefront in what was formerly the junk store. So they're going to move right down the road. They're going to open up about 13,000 square feet of retail space where an individual could go in and they could purchase your laundry detergents, just common household items at a pretty discounted rate. So we're excited to see that.
You talked about being on the cutting edge of doing various things to get people's attention. What about international companies? Maybe, again, Suprema really has its roots in Europe. And maybe there's other companies out there maybe looking at the United States and especially Wadsworth to expand.
Yeah, so I think that's where we collaborate with state agencies such as Jobs Ohio and Team NEO, who really have those connections with the international companies. As you had mentioned, Suprema, it's a French-based company. Radici Plastics, an Italian company located here in the city of Wadsworth and doing quite well. So reaching out to our state agencies who collaborate with those international companies is really important. So again, we try to build and nurture that relationship till we have that opportunity to continue to try to support those who are here and then attract new ones as well.
Are there any meetings or regional opportunities where countries would come and you could go and have representatives to talk and discuss that occasionally?
Yeah, those opportunities do exist. In the 1 year that I've been here, I haven't personally been involved with it yet, but I do suspect at some point that opportunity will arise.
What about the situation with the new fire station? Did you have any role in that whatsoever?
I will take no credit.
Okay. Well, it really is going up fast on College Street, and it really, again, will help the community. Insurance rates, if you live, in a close proximity. People sometimes forget the byproducts and the benefits. And that would be something the business would look at, say, well, if we ever have a catastrophe, the fire station's right there to respond.
Yeah. So we're excited about that. I know our safety director, Matt Hiscock, has worked really hard on that project. And whether or not it's publicly known, or that well known at least, we're excited to be able to share that directly behind the new fire station upon completion. At some point in the future will be a safety town that'll be constructed. So we're excited about that opportunity, and we think the community is really going to be happy with it.
How about the new 5th and 6th grade? I see that there was lots of work being done on that site and trying to level off. And I think groundbreaking may be late in the spring. All goes right. But again, supply chain. Dr. Hill said that has been a little concern, and they're working on to do that. Did you have any role in that?
Well, I kind of observed from a distance.
Sure.
Certainly try to keep close communication with Dr. Hill and his administration. I know they ran into some challenges associated with some wetlands on the site, as well as some Indiana bat regulations. That's a state issue where March 31st, there's a lot of prohibition on certain kinds of tree clearing. And so they ran into some logistical issues with that. But certainly we want to be supportive and try to help them get across the finish line. Based upon my conversations with school administration, they still believe that they can be on schedule to be open for that 2025-2026 school year.
It's, when people talk to one another, issues get solved. Maybe not right away, but it really does help when you have a good rapport with, again, other cities and townships and the school system. You talked before we got on the air that you interact with lots of people.
Lots of people.
Is there a typical day? I don't think there is, but what, like this week, what were some of the things you got into this week?
Well, yeah, every week varies, every day varies.
Sure.
It's not uncommon, and I agree 100% that it's about communication, building those relationships and building trust. I can give you an example where we collaborated with a prospective restaurant owner and operator who's interested in the community. They were attracted because they first heard about the restaurant expansion program that we were initiating, and they were able to find some real estate. And so as they found that real estate, we were able to pull together the right individuals, the chief building official from Medina County, Chief Lindner from the fire department, myself and a few other individuals to try to help that prospective restaurant owner and operator understand what challenges and opportunities might exist for that space. So it's not uncommon to pull areas of expertise from different places in order to try to help those businesses.
Yeah, that's a salient point, because a person from the outside would have really no way of knowing who to go ahead and begin the search for the property and then looking into the utilities and the transportation. Then they would be probably surprised by all the positiveness in Wadsworth, and then they could maybe go from there and make the board of directors could make some decisions and maybe expand.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that goes back to why I think Wadsworth is unique, because we have almost all, except for natural gas, of the utilities in-house. We're really able to streamline the process. And so I think one of the things I really try to focus on is you want to make the development process fair and predictable, right? So the business community, entrepreneurs, people who are looking to invest money in the community know what they're getting into, and it's a fair and predictable process. So we're trying to accomplish that.
I know you didn't bring your crystal ball with you, Matt, but what do you think Wadsworth will look like in 5 years?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of big projects on the horizon.
Sure.
Some of them are still conceptual. Some of them still need to be revised slightly. But for example, we're rolling out the Parks Master Plan. So that's going to be a multi-year project, but many of the parks in the community are going to see a pretty significant face change and overhaul. And then certainly bringing on the potential to include the Brickyard site, which is again, state-of-the-art athletic facility with baseball fields, softball fields, walking tracks, tennis courts, pickleball courts, playground equipment, off-road hiking, and just all those kinds of different amenities. That could certainly be a really nice attribute for the community. Another big project that's been discussed for years now is a downtown infrastructure project. Certainly because of interest rates and cost of materials, we're going back and we're kind of revisiting what that project should look like to make sure that we can afford all the different things that we had discussed prior to the pandemic starting. So that's another pretty significant project on the horizon. So in 5 years, if those projects come to fruition, this community could look quite a bit different.
You know, we talked about patience before. For our citizens, things don't get done in a week or month. It takes, again, planning, sometimes years to plan, especially if you're talking about, several hundred acres. I mean, that's just not going to be done overnight.
No, it certainly will
to
not.
be done right.
Yeah.
To be done right, I would imagine you're very, very interested in that and having the community really appreciate what the final product is.
Yeah, and that's something that we will obviously engage with the community, get feedback to make sure they're part of that final product, because certainly we want it to be beneficial to everyone and a community-led effort.
Well, Matt Springer, I thank you very much for joining us today. We really covered a lot of different subjects, and certainly the city is moving forward each and every day, each and every week, and thank you very much for your preparation and talking to various people and bringing them together.
Thank you.
We've done some shows in the past. We had Phil Horaceberger on recently, and he did the book for the basketball teams for over 30 years, both the boys and girls, and we had some fine wrestlers on. And also Santee Landing. We had that property looked at, and it's 45 units on Seville Road. Thanks for viewing Bruce on the Loose.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.